Hi guys, I'm here to talk to you today about the archival quality of the Karst stone paper notebook. I'm just finishing my Moleskine notebook, the 80 GSM page, and I wanted something that had less ghosting. And I'm too close to the end of this notebook to order a Leuchtturm online, the 120 GSM online. So I went to Paper Source and they didn't have the Leuchtturm 120 GSM in stock, so I went to Barnes & Noble. They didn't have the Leuchtturm 120 GSM in stock either, but they did have the Karst stone paper notebook, which is rated at 144 GSM or 120 microns. That's just because the paper is so much heavier, but apparently does have much less ghosting. As a notebook itself, it's much heavier, which is kind of cool. But once I got it back, I wondered if it was archival quality versus regular like paper from trees. So I did a bit of research. Feel free to do your own research too, because this was just my frantic Googling to see whether or not I should indeed start writing in paper made from stone. So what I found out is it is basically comparable to acid-free paper in terms of archival quality. It is very light sensitive, so if it is left in the sun, it will start to turn brittle and fall apart, unlike paper, acid-free paper made from trees. But this, I believe this is a cardboard cover, and cardboard blocks a lot of UV rays. If it's left in the sun before it deteriorates, especially if it's painted, it can last up to 6 months to 2 years, something like that. And then the paper itself will start to deteriorate in the sun after after 6 months to 8 months, I believe. So this would have like 2.5 years in the direct UV sun before it started cracking. The only areas where I would be concerned for the sunlight is on the edges. So I'm just gonna try and be careful to not write close to the edges. I looked up online what the paper looks like when it starts to crack from UV exposure and high heat exposure. I think it can go up to about 248 degrees before it starts to crack, turn brittle and yellow. The paper essentially is like eggshell. So that's what it turns into when it starts to crack and break. Unlike regular paper made from trees, that turns very thin and tears. However, regular paper does turn brittle and breaks as well and loses tensile strength. So both rock paper and regular paper lose tensile strength. They will, online, I was nervous because it said this will lose 60% of its tensile strength. But then I also learned that regular paper loses tensile strength. And then I learned that acid-free paper shouldn't lose any tensile strength if it's kept in pristine conditions. And then I learned that neither should this paper if it's kept in pristine conditions. So basically, this seems to be very comparable to normal paper if they're both kept in pristine conditions. And if they're both not kept in pristine conditions, I think they're both liable to become much weaker papers and fall apart. The difference is, I think, just that regular paper will tear and this paper will crack like an eggshell. If you keep your papers in cool, dry conditions, it shouldn't be a problem. the Egyptians or the people who kept their papers for hundreds of years were keeping them in cool, dry conditions, and that is why we still have paper from them. I was nervous to write in this because I have this thing where I want my paper to be, my journals to be able to be read by people in hundreds of years. But I didn't want this to fall apart, and my concern is if this is kept in an attic where it does get above 248 degrees, this will start to fall apart after 6 months. However, when I compared that to regular paper, it seemed that regular paper would start to fall apart too. So it doesn't seem to be a direct science, but from what I could tell online, both types of paper will weaken. And this cardboard cover should protect this from sunlight. But someone can tell me in the comments if you know if like intense attic level heat would make this not worth using as opposed to a Leuchtturm 120 GSM, because I want to be able to have archival quality journaling, and I have a lot of journals, but I love how smooth this paper is. It doesn't have threads. It's essentially just stone, the type of resin, which apparently is part of the reason why it can turn brittle. If this disintegrates or biodegrades, it turns into rock dust, which is why it cracks like an eggshell. Yeah, I don't know. I'm very interested in using this stone paper notebook. Like I said, it's heavier than a normal notebook. But from what I could tell online, it will deteriorate at a normal rate. The big difference is that it is sensitive to light. But I can only ever picture this being kept in a box somewhere, in an attic somewhere, so I don't think it will be exposed to light. So I'm not worried about that. The only other condition I'm worried about it being exposed to is heat. Like I can see it being in an attic for years and years and years at a time, in which case all the paper would be brittle and fall apart, and then they would have to tape the pages together, and it would be a huge waste of time, and they probably wouldn't even read the journal. And then it makes me wonder if I should even write in the journal in the first place, which makes me sad. It makes me wonder if I shouldn't have even bought the journal. But yeah, the pages are very smooth, but I just don't have enough time to order a Leuchtturm, and I don't feel like buying another journal like my Moleskine, where I have to write on I can't write on the backs of pages because the ghosting is so bad, because I use a gel pen. So yeah, that's my overview of the Karst stone paper notebook. I'm excited to write in it, but let me know if you think that the heat will be too big of an issue. I'm really not worried about this disintegrating in an attic, which just is another reason for me to feel okay with writing in this and not thinking that it's disintegrate. I feel like there's a lot of fear mongering online saying that you shouldn't use this paper because it will disintegrate and it's not archival quality. And yes, it does disintegrate in the light. That's why I'm going to try to not write on the edges of it, just because that's the parts that are probably going to be exposed to the light, unless it's just laying open somewhere. But the cardboard should protect it for at least some length of time, and it's probably going to be kept in a box somewhere or shoved between other journals of mine or other books. So overall, I think the Karst stone notebook is archival safe, but use your own discretion. I probably won't buy another one just because I want to get the Leuchtturm 120 GSM from now on out, but if I ever can't buy a Leuchtturm 120 GSM because I don't have enough time to order it, then I might get another one of these. It just depends. But yeah, happy journaling.